Long letter.
Yes, so a long letter. Well, actually, the point of the letter was that why is Descartes so
Famous.
famous? Because he is the father. He's considered the founder and the father of the theoretical philosophy. So that there is the school of empirical philosophy that is, well, for example, Aristotle, who is observing the world and is making conclusions based on his observations. So he observed, for example, that it's not always the best argument that wins. So he made a complete philosophy about how to be more persuasive in your argumentation. He observed the importance of theater, and he wrote actually how to make an interesting plot for theater, which is still like used today. That kind of way. So how to write a good plot with a twist and good faith and then a twist in the plot, and then how people will overcome. That is still used today. Now, Descartes was actually the first one who only used the inside of his head to philosophize.
Really?
Actually,
How about Aristotle?
Aristotle, no. Aristotle was very much empirical. Maybe you could say Plato was more like Descartes, but not entirely, because Plato also had a school and also tried to kind of theorize what he observed empirically. But he asked himself also questions like, for example, is what we are seeing, is that real? And he theorized about it. But Descartes was completely theoretical. So he said, okay, I don't do anything empirical because I cannot tell what I observe is actually real. So he went one step beyond. One of the reasons why he did it is that he was actually of quite ill health. He was not very healthy. So his teachers always allowed him.
He was something wrong?
He was always he was not very strong. He was not a very healthy person.
What's wrong?
I don't know exactly. Kaze? I don't know. I don't know what disease he had, or whether it was a steady disease or whether he was just susceptible to all kinds of diseases. But he never got out of bed before 12 in the afternoon.
Oh my God.
Huh. But he didn't just sleep all the time. He was thinking. He was thinking in his bed. So without any empirical observation, he was thinking, and he was philosophizing in bed. And he was philosophizing, okay, what can I know for sure? Do I exist? Does the world around me exist? Does it really exist, or is it just a projection, like Plato claimed that we cannot be sure whether we can see the full reality, or that we are only observing a reflection of the reality. So why is Descartes important? Because Descartes was the first one to actually create a new stream in philosophy that 100% relied not on empirical observation, but 100% on no-ryoku. No-ryoku, complete abstraction of anything. So he just theorized, okay, what do I know for sure? And he was that's why it's called Cartesian skepticism. He took nothing at face value. Everything that he observed, he questioned. And if you question everything, he couldn't prove anything. So, for example, the question, does God exist? He could not answer that question. He wanted to believe that God existed, but he couldn't answer that question. He couldn't answer the question, is what I am observing real? He could not answer that question. do I exist, or am I just an empty vessel? So basically, he theorized so much back because he wanted to create a starting point, a point zero. One thing, if there was something that he couldn't be sure of, then there would be, maybe he could derive from that other things that he could be sure of. Now, the famous saying, I think, therefore I am, was his breakthrough moment. That was the first thing, the most fundamental thing, his stepping stone, based on which he was going to build an entire model of the world. So the things that he could be certain of. For that, he became very famous. I think, therefore I am, or he probably thought, je pense donc je suis, but because he was French. But that was his starting point, and based on that knowledge, that because I think I know that I have thoughts, therefore I know that I am. That was the starting point, and he derived from that God exists. Now, with that proof, there's a lot of things that are wrong. So Descartes didn't become famous because he had irrefutable proof, for example, for the existence of God. He did not. But
He denied God.
No, absolutely not. No, he definitely, he was looking for ways that he could prove that God existed. But I don't think that he was absolutely objective in his pursuit to prove this. He wanted to prove it. He didn't want to derive at the conclusion that I cannot prove that God exists. I think for him and for his brand value, he tried to persuade us in believing that God exists. But with his proof, a lot is wrong. But his attempt, I mean, the way, his approach, his methodology.
He couldn't prove.
Well, I don't think he could. Today there are very few philosophers and very few people who actually believe that the proof that Descartes provides, that God exists, is actually valid. There's a lot wrong with it. The proof goes a little bit like this, if I remember correctly. So basically, the premise is that God is immeasurably good. So God basically means good. So it's the best what we can get. So if that is true, so if that premise is true, so God is the best that we can, the best there is. Basically, that's the internal goodness. If that is true, we know that that God exists. Why? Because if God did not exist, if God was just a fantasy that we imagine that it was that what he was, and that was very good, it would be even better if he would exist. Therefore, God exists, because if it wouldn't exist, there would be a better version of God, and that was the God that would exist. Therefore, since God is the best there is, we know that he exists.
Say again?
So God is the ultimate, is super. Right, so there is nothing better than God. God is the absolute best.
Okay.
Right, so that is the premise. That premise is very important, because based on this premise, he says that if God would not exist, there would be a better version of God, namely God that exists. Therefore, since God is best, we know that he must exist.
はい、皆さんこんにちは、雲野です。今日はですね、雲野塾の研修のプログラムをご紹介したいと思います。で、こういうふうなホームページありますけれども、ぜひですね、一度中身をご覧になっていただきたいと思います。今日は VCube さんのスタジオに来て、この収録をしておりますので、中身はこういうふうになってて、今最近ホットなね、グローバルリーダーの定義など書いてあります。で、特に経団連が作成しました、留学すれば英語ができて専門性を持つというだけではですね、グローバルリーダーになれないとここに書いてありますようにですね、仕事ができる専門性を持つ英語ができるだけじゃなくてですね、私どもの塾ではリベラルアーツということと、それからもう一つは孫子の兵を、さらにはですね、日本の歴史というものを合わせて教えることによって皆さんが海外の欧米の方々と、もしくは華僑圏の方々と正々堂々と渡り合えるような人物を育成しようというふうなことを考えています。ここに次のスライドが出ておりますけれども、ここに書いてありますのはですね、さらに、私どもの雲野塾の中身につきましてはですね、欧米の資料しか使っておりません。また実際に雲野塾は英語でやっておりますので、英語の講師がこう話しておりますけど、学習はですね、日本の歴史をまだ教えてますので、学習の午後はですね、日本のプログラムをしております。で、以前はこれ有料だったので、今はですね、実際に会場費も取っていただいておりませんで、毎回5000円ということで、朝9時から午後5時までやっておりますので、ぜひ皆さんですね、ご検討の上ご参加いただければと。英語のできない方もですね、学習の午後こういうふうな検証をしておりますので、ぜひご参加いただければというふうに思っておりますので、よろしくお願いします。で、ここにさらにですね、グループ討議とか実務の勘どころを教えると書いてありますけど、実際には私が10年ほどですね、欧米の新聞とか雑誌等をですね、集めてきた、もともと英語のベースでございますので、そうしたものをですね、50セッションのテーマに分けて資料作成をしております。そういうことで、世界のオペレーション、もしくはカントリーリスクも含めてですね、しかも世界のトップの方々に対しても、いろいろな分析とか洞察をしてですね、議論をしております。そういったことも含めてですね、今後ともよろしくお願いしたいと思います。以上で私の挨拶を終えますが、今回のこのビデオの収録にあたってはですね、VCube さんのスタジオをお借りしてですね、お時間を頂戴して、このビデオを作成させていただきました。よろしくお願いします。どうもありがとうございました。